It's like get out of the matrix, wake up. The deeper, more nuanced aspect of that is wake up to the judgment that we're creating, even the judgment of the system. I know that the system, right, goes away or transforms into something else. The moment we stop giving, we start putting our attention on what matters to us and to our authenticity, then that has to transform.
All right, brother. Let's do it.
We did it.
We did it. We did it already. Yeah, man. Welcome to the pod.
Good to be here.
I feel like this has been a long time coming.
Absolutely.
As soon as I met
Yeah.
you, I was like, okay, this is a guy I want to get on the podcast. I want to dive in and ask some thought-provoking questions, and also just getting your thoughts on life. I think you have a unique, for me, unique way of seeing the world. It's very deep and it's very connected, and I always have time for those kind of people,
Thank you,
because
brother.
I can learn a lot through that. I learn a lot through you.
Likewise, we go deep together. I really feel that. Like it's, it's really special that we've come together. I feel that, and
Mm-hmm.
grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and see what you're up to, and the
Mm-hmm.
friendship that is spawned from this is special.
Yeah, man. So it was spawned from the 100 Human Experience, which we'll give some context to, which is where we are now, the Dunford House in the South Downs of England, and we've just finished a 3-day. It was definitely 3 days. It
Yeah,
felt like a lot more.
felt like 3 years, 3 weeks anyway.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Why do you think these events feel so long in a timeline, I guess?
For me, it takes me out of any other kind of rhythm that I might be used to at the time, and it's into a vortex of lots of things getting done, meeting lots of people. So, and even in a neuroplasticity sense, it's very expanded. And I would say the sense of time then starts to feel expanded. And if we, in my experience, if we stayed here for another 3 days, those 3 days would go by like that.
Mm.
It's how I've experienced events like this, or well, not on this scale, the smaller retreats and things like that. The first few days are expanded because the neurochemicals and we're taking so much in,
Mm.
so it feels like wow, there's a lot, and then it normalizes again.
Okay.
Goes quicker. That's how I experience it.
Yeah, for sure. I can kind of get that. I feel you go so deep with people, and people are so open and curious, open to chat, open to talk about the biggest things that they're dealing with, or the depths that they can go. It's almost it's almost like you. I often find you go so deep with people in an intimate environment. I often feel like I know them more than I know some of my closest friends. You know,
Yeah,
because it's got that space.
that's what's so special about this.
Yeah.
We create that space, with the intention. And I was speaking to some of the people here, and Tony, who's really the catalyst for bringing everyone together, holds a lot of dimensions of people's attention. So it can be on the fitness and the athleticism, on the diets and nutrition, and then more on the deeper healing experiences that we can go on. Because Tony's been walked that path. We've all walked that path of facilitation here, and the fact that we have embodied that and we are continuing the embodiment process
Mm.
allows people energy, like they might not even mentally understand why they feel safer to go deeper. It's the fact that we've been through our shit. We know not to. We have passed the place of judgment on that, and we see a human being in front of us. And when a human being feels seen, they'll reveal themselves, more dimensions of themselves. And I find that the more we go on our journey, the more I've gone on my journey, the more people open up, and that's something that's very special and something that I really appreciate, because it's a richness to life. It's a depth to life. It is even more connection. Now I remember my first experience of this was when I started getting into yoga, and yoga was a really big catalyst for my own transformation and continues to be. And I did a yoga training in 2015, 2016, and the connection that was formed over the months, so we did a every other weekend for 6 months. The connection that was formed with, I'm still best friends with several of my yoga training group. And I recognize in that moment these are the deepest connections I've ever formed. Also because we experienced life together. We experienced life together, not the story about something. We experienced it together. The healing, the things coming up, the rawness, the vulnerability, the even stepping into vulnerability. What is that? And when there's a safe space, and when there's and when somebody shows up willing to do that, one, it's healing for that person, and two, it's healing for everybody, because then others feel like, okay, that's possible, and I have these stories or these aspects of me that are really wanting to dying to be seen and heard and expressed, and allowing that energy to move. I always reflect back on it as energy. So that experience with the tribe, that first tribe for me was the yoga training, 30 of us and 29 of us, and the depth of the connection was like, it's amazing. And I feel like even in these 3 days experiences here, the 100 human experiences, so is an accelerated version of that. It's already with the intention to go deep and set the stage. I feel like the energy and the stage is set, that people are allowing themselves to go deep, and it's as if it's when you have a group of people and the consciousness or the idea is shifting, you just need that mass, that critical mass, and then the others can just tip into it,
Mm.
follow the example, and then get to experience that for themselves. I think it's that we are experiencing life together at a deep level, at a true, authentic level that brings that very tight cohesion.
Mhm.
Mm.
I feel like you describe this experience so well. When did that vocabulary come in? Because I often think how we communicate things is equally as important is the feelings themselves. You know, we know ourselves in relation to other people, and there was this quote that really resonated around like loneliness. Loneliness isn't being on your own. It's about being unable to communicate
Mm.
what your experience is. And I
Wow.
found that quite fascinating.
Yeah.
That in our communication, because we allow people to see us through our sharing, our stories, our context, and what we do and do not know.
Where did the language for that come from? That's a fascinating question.
Mm.
And it's
Because
evolving.
you get
Yeah.
better at it, right? You get better because
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
get feedback and you're like, oh,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
stuck. And I think you said something in when you were hosting and holding that space for the cacao ceremony, which is what you do here, amongst many other things. And you said something around you are getting better at logistics. Like even something quite surface level perhaps, but equally as important that you were like knowing what to reduce and what to say, what to be a bit more specific over here. And it comes from
It's an art.
yeah, absolutely.
It's an art and it's a craft, and I really love it.
Mm.
I love expressing myself in that way in a very because it's satisfying for me to express as closely to the experience as we can. Because if you've had, so the people who come here and have this experience or go through any big transformational experience, if your friend that's not been in that asks you how it was, there's going to be something that tries to jump off of you because words don't really do it, do they? I had that experience once as somebody asked me how that, what that training was like. And before words tried to describe it, it was a feeling that tried to escape and tried to be like, here, it was like this. And so over time, the closer I can get to hitting the like acupressure points of landing the language of what it is I'm trying to express, it's very satisfying. I had an experience with in one of my trainings with a facilitator who was taking us through philosophy, yogic philosophy, and mantra and Sanskrit. And Sanskrit's the ancient language of that where yoga is born through, and Sanskrit is a vibrational language. So the tonality of it, the influences the energy, and it also influences how it lands. So it's not just taking it and pronouncing it a certain way. It's if you can get the pronunciation and the tonality of it, it creates a deeper, richer, more contextual communication. And I really believe we within English and the way we communicate, because we're much more heady, we just seek to communicate surface level information. And the even Aramaic, these ancient languages had a deeper ability to convey with built into them that was used at the time, and now in a sense that has gone extinct, and not necessarily extinct, but it's very rare to find that quality of somebody who this particular facilitator understood the harmonics and the tonality of the language. And she took us through a workshop, 3 hours, and I was sat on the edge of my mat. I was leaning in so hard. I was so present, so engaged with that experience, more than I'd ever been in my life, because, one, and this is in retrospect, she got us into a state of mind. We were chanting mantra. We were in a meditative state of mind. We were in an alpha state of mind, which is already more calm, more receiving. So she had a lecture, information to give us, and she set us up in a place that it's an opportunity to receive. And at the end of that, I said, I've been in classrooms 20 years of my life, studying formal education and everything like that. I've never been so interested in something in my life. And that was huge because I was yearning to feel that interested in anything. And that 3 hours changed me. I said, what was that about? I had to ask her, what was that about? Like, that was next level. She said, well, and she's a master at what she's doing. Lucy Crisfield in Vedic Sanskrit, and she's here in the UK too. And part of her response was around when we've lived this for our life and we speak about it, it hits deeper. So when it's coming from our wisdom of experience, when we speak from it, it hits deeper. So I think that that's a huge part of the bigger picture that we're talking about is developing that language, is to go through the experience and integrate it, as in talk to others about it, read other people's experiences about it, not just read the book and assume that's the wisdom. Have the experience too. Journaling is huge, writing things down, and then just over years, and then recognizing for me that there is an interest in conveying that at the deepest level possible, and that drives the evolution of that ability to convey. So she said, one, it was the state we were in, alpha state, meditative state, ability to receive, and also just when it's coming from the depth. And the teachers, the masters of their craft, whenever we're speaking with somebody who's so embodied in it, and we are even a little bit interested in what they're talking about, it always amplifies it. If we're not interested, it'll go over our head. But if we're interested, and they're talking from that sense of depth and resonance, that's when it hits us at a deeper. That's my experience of it too. I have another really quick story that's because you asked me that, and it's something I've been seen for.
Sure. I see you for that. It feels effortless, the work you do.
Thank you.
I know you, but I don't want to take away your effort, but it feels effortless.
It needs to be effortless, though.
Yeah.
In a sense. Yeah,
you know someone's lived it when it becomes effortless to them. You know someone who's well versed or is experienced, and that's the beauty that you can receive a message and it feel like they are weightless and just in their authentic truth and just expressing, and which is what the space you hold has in abundance.
Thank you. Thank you. When people share that with me, it only allows me to give myself even more permission to speak and to share from that place. Because the intention is always healing. It's gone, I've been through phases where it was about me and ego-centric, about being right, about some sense of hierarchy. I've been through that. And there's an out of integrity energy to that. So I've also become sensitive to that feeling of that energy isn't quite right. That feeling about how I'm expressing this isn't sitting in me right. And therefore that effortlessness and that grace isn't there. And I want the effortlessness and the grace. Like I want to experience that, and then I can share that with others. Because it's when it goes from about me being an authority and whatever, and telling you what I know, instead of having the intention of creating a space where healing is possible, where deeper connection and understanding is possible. I can only speak from my own experience. However, I have this sense that if I speak from my experience, it's going to touch other human beings. And the intention there is for them to touch aspects of themselves and to feel and to connect with aspects of themselves that can help move the energy. And healing for me has become super clear. We have to make the journey from the head to the heart. We have to remember, we get to remember what it is to feel and to can recognize that this existence as being human is an energetic one. And then release all, as long as it takes, any and all judgment, which puts a cap on that energy exchange so that we can be currency, we can be moving energy, and that's our authenticity. And it's interesting because I felt like years ago there would be a place where I knew myself. Like I gotta get to that place where I know myself.
You shared something at the closing yesterday about you've been on that journey to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that when you shared it?
It's an ongoing journey. And I believe the truest, the capital T truth to that is that I'm unknowable. And to surrender to that whatever's manifesting in this present moment is what is the only thing I can know. And then that again, surrendering to the next present moment. And I know that's so, to reflect on saying that and holding that, that's a belief in of itself, right? That's already a step away from that capital T truth, because it has to be right here in this moment. It's already a small story away from it. And I thought that enlightenment, or, the place where I was trying to get to with yoga and with meditation and so many other practices, was I wanted to be set. I wanted to be done. I wanted to be at the top of the mountain. And I've let go of any notion of the top of the mountain. And it's seemingly that's closer to the experience I was looking for, where if I know myself, then I'll have everything figured out, versus presence. And that's the best knowing oneself we can have, is what's expressing through me in this present moment. And in any degree of separation from that, any thought process, story, unconscious manifesting behavior that we can become aware of, yeah, it's all part of it. It's all energy moving. And if I can be present to that and witness that, then that's me knowing myself in the moment. It's not trying to have myself figured out, because it's like the ego wants to figure it out. The control wants to figure it out, because then that dimension of me feels like, oh, it can rest. Okay, I've got it figured out. Now I let go of that one.
Mm-hmm. And judgment, have you struggled with that in the past?
I wouldn't say necessarily. Yes, in a sense.
I've struggled.
Yeah.
I've struggled.
Yeah.
Creeps in.
Oh, it creeps in for me all the time.
Uh-huh.
Struggle, though.
But even just to try and find the root of how I can know that origin story of why there's so much judgment there. And I think, again, it's a word to describe quite a lot. I feel like judgment is a broad spectrum of things, because we do need to judge what's hot and what's cold, and that is making a judgment, an assumption, to categorize and to also make life simpler and be present. Because if we're constantly feeling things, touching things, seeing things for the first time without judgment, your day's gonna be quite busy.
We'll start from scratch every day, won't we?
So yeah, I think for me, I've definitely the judgment side of things, just things creeping in where I was wrong about something, and I'm like, wow, I definitely judged that, and that created a barrier, a wall, which didn't allow connection, and an opportunity was lost there, or whatever it is. I've rooted it back to definitely judgment about myself, about things I don't like about myself, I don't accept about myself, or I see that in another person, I see myself in another person, and it's so unconscious. It's like, wow, whether it's I'm greater than, I'm better than, what this judgment's creeping in, and then I'm reflecting, and it's like, wow, I'm seeing that side of myself in them, which I haven't accepted. That could be me walking a different path. If I made many different decisions, I could have been this person. And I think it's rooted in those types of thoughts and feelings. But it gets murky, and it's a dance, right?
It is a
constant dance. How do you rein that in and
the biggest transformation around judgment, two things. When I started practicing yoga, that's when I recognized how judgmental I was. I was in a asana, physical yoga practice, vinyasa movement class in London, and I became aware. So that's the big piece, is the awareness, is the observer can see the mind judging, or the ego being judgmental, and I recognized, I'm comparing my body to that body, I'm comparing my practice to that practice, I'm judging my practice. And I saw that, and then this is where it cracked me up, because I judged myself for judging myself, and the observer also saw that. And I said, that's the fucking matrix. Well, this is after the fact, but it's like when I recognized that I'll judge myself for judging, that's like saying, how am I ever going to get out of this if I only just let myself rest from the judgment? And so now if I notice myself judging, and I still do, I'm okay with, like, I will recognize it, I'll bring light to it. What what process I've done that has helped bring lightness into me is that I allow it. Okay, I judged. Okay, I judged. And it's stopping that secondary process of judging for judging, which is another layer up. And of course now there's far less judgment in that. And that means that I get to be much easier within myself, because it is that experience of judgment within ourselves projected outwardly. So when we get to experience that state of consciousness, whether it's in plant medicine, cacao, deep meditation, where we recognize the oneness of us all, and the madness, really the madness, the irrational aspect of us that is judging, that is creating separateness, then we can laugh at it, and then we can create the space. We can really create. So I've created a lot of space for myself with just that awareness. Oh, I had even a tendency to judge myself for judging myself. And you said, well, what about, I've got to judge that this, if I touch this hot pan, is going to burn. I would say that's, for me, I like to use, so judgment for me is the thing that's disconnecting me from life. And then the day-to-day thing, I say discernment. Discernment comes from a place of wisdom. It's like I'm discerning based on what I've known, that if I go into this interaction, I can expect something like this. So I can use wisdom from experience to discern, and even then, it's like this is a completely new moment, right? So if I bring any expectation to that, then what am I creating through that expectation? Now, the discernment though is in the wisdom body, so that's different than the intellectual judging, and I'd say that's more of an intuitive thing. It's a gut knowing versus the inner critic that's derived from our parents or society about what's right, what's wrong in the world, and about behavior and everything. And so the more allowing I've become of, and allowing as an encompassing thing, that's where the space is. And then when it comes to, right, I've got my feet on the ground, I'm a human being. I've got to get myself here to facilitate it, this event. I've got to do my logistics, like you said. That story was really special because I was walking up to the tent. We were bringing two handfuls of things. I was with Kate and Nina. They were helping me. And I thought to myself, and this was like it's a bit of a judgmental thought, right? It's like, wow, ceremony requires so much logistics, right? So I put ceremony in that box. So many logistics go into this. And then I immediately, so the refrain would be the opportunity to create space there, because I had to, I didn't just say that and keep going. I said that and observed that I said it. And it's like, hold on. And then I thought back to all my teachers, all the ceremonialists that I've been with, who've helped guide me, shape me, and the traditions that I've learned and connected with, and how everything comes back. Every part of that ceremony comes back to intention. So how much of that experience can be rooted with an intention of being on purpose for this? And so then immediately logistics went to, oh, there's so much prayer and intention that goes into ceremony. And that made the idea of logistics, which was heavy and burdensome, go to amazing. I'll do pray and intention as much as it takes to make this ceremony happen as beautiful as I can. I was saying something before I got into that story, and I let it
think it's
go.
a judgment.
Yeah, around judgment.
Mm-hmm.
That even that little moment became an opportunity to reframe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and you spoke to it in the ceremony, which was even more powerful.
That's a huge thing. Is again the sharing the experience that's alive in us needs to happen because that's what's true in the present moment. Again, that's not the creating a disconnection, because it could be easy to judge myself. Look at me, Mr. Ceremony and Mr. Knowing It All, and then here I want to downgrade ceremony, call it logistics, right? And then I have the inner shaman, inner wise one that wants to say, no, 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 it's all intention and prayer, young one, right? So it's like I could have the part of me that wants to withdraw that I have that process from others versus to share the process with them openly. And even better yet is maybe there's a part of my process that I haven't figured out yet. I would like to share that with others too, because it's the more we can be human in others, the more judgment begins to cease as well, because we get to see others being in their human process. It's so I really I see the matrix as is judgment, and versus okay, so discernment of making our way here in this three-dimensional human body experience, like discerning and also understanding what is this being and this soul in here to manifest and here to create, like what's the purpose that drives. So that's a navigating life and using discernment to and making mistakes and figuring that out. And not even mistakes, it's like learning from that, right? And then there's the willingness to go for it, the willingness to put myself out there, however that is. And then within the context of judgment, it's like recognizing that every layer of that is a disconnection from the present moment. And so for me, that is what the matrix is. It's interesting. We talk about the matrix as media. I mean, I like the media and conditioning and other people's interests and great influence in the systems that being able to influence people because they have our attention. We've willingly or unconsciously willingly given our attention to this. We call that the matrix. It's like, get out of the matrix, wake up. And for me, the deeper, more nuanced aspect of that is wake up to the judgment that we're creating, even the judgment of the system. I know that the system, right, goes away or transforms into something else the moment we start putting our attention on what matters to us and to our authenticity. Then that has to transform, whatever that is, because we're the collective. The mainstream is giving that attention and then allowing that to create. So we call that one matrix, but it's the matrix to think that we need anything outside of ourselves, which would be a judgment, that then we would judge and then look outside to try and fulfill that. So the first matrix to undo, I think the matrix to undo all other matrices, is that one of recognizing, becoming aware of the judgment. And for goodness sake, if you find yourself judging yourself or judging yourself, please laugh. Please laugh at that insanity and just love it. And then love can happen. The antithesis, well, curiosity would be the antithesis for me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, man.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that was amazing. Still trying to put that together in my mind, I had an amazing podcast with Erwin LaCour. Do you know him? He's the founder of MoveNat. And he talked for the longest time about discernment. Just like that is the human experience almost. It's like, who are we? What makes us human? And it is our ability to discern. Like, it's such a pivotal part of us. And it makes up so much of our experience. And, well, our ability to do it, or our lack of doing it, let's say. But I think the matrix, when we do that, and you see this in the spiritual communities, like tenfold, I believe, like this separation, this us and them.
Yeah.
And it feels sometimes even worse, because then you have this persona wrapped around oneness, but then it's like perpetuated by like, the matrix. It's like that energy that we're perpetuating, right? That
Exactly.
separation, which is what that system almost does.
Yeah. It's another manifestation of that. I feel like I've been into that experience myself of going on a spiritual journey, being and then having that judgment of I'm better than,
Mm.
or I know anything better, or there's something wrong with the world or with anybody else, right? See, that's there's judgment there that there's anything wrong with anybody else's behavior. It's something I'm rejecting, and that shows up a lot. A friend of mine calls that the white shadow. So it's still shadow. It's just this superiority around spirit being spiritual.
Hmm. So how did you navigate that and over?
Humility, dude. Like just having my ass knocked back a few times by my own shadow and recognizing how much disconnection I'm still creating. Because when I recognize the need for connection and meet that need for connection, the more I learn to do that and the more I learn that I play a co-creative role in creating that for myself and for others, then the more that becomes the way, and that's where I put my attention versus the old paradigm, the old way of being, which would be to create the separation and to keep going down the rabbit hole of separation because I have this idea that I'm special or it's a significance need meter, meeting of significance. Now, significance for me comes from living my purpose, like learning how to articulate what matters, learning how to create a connection with other people, sharing that with other people from a place, and also from knowing that when I'm speaking and in like like leading a cacao ceremony with others, the utter humility to know that I am such an insignificant part of this bigger piece that okay in the word facilitation all the place I'm doing here is I'm bringing in some tools that I happen to know work for people, for most people, some prayers, some intentions, some ways I can direct attention towards healing, and then those tools, and then those people who come and those people who are willing to embody that experience in the moment and get that deeper connection, whether it's a purge of emotion or an unraveling of a story or something like that, to know that I have so little to do with that, and it's their willingness, the tool, the people who've come before, before, and who I've learned from, and my own journey and humility towards the process that it is. Like I just want to show up and do my very best, the best that I can, to present a possibility and an invitation for healing because I know how fucking good it feels and I know how great it feels to be connected. And it's nothing about spiritual superiority. Nothing about it. Definitely has been in times, but it's how I've redirected my attention to what matters for me, and that's the integration of the lost, ego parts where we would project onto the world. So just it's a I'd say a faculty, it's a part of my deeper healing journey is to become aware that hey, that's showing up for me, that I show it up in a way where I thought I was better than somebody else or was judging some experience, and to be again some tough ego medicine right there to accept that, and then remember I'm not going to judge that. I'm just going to observe that that's how I showed up. Because if I again go into judgment about that, then I'm still perpetuating that matrix. I'm still perpetuating that way of being, which is so deeply conditioned. And so it's like when I'm supporting anybody in a process, I want to be such a willingness for them to be in their process because I know it's like everything that it will take everything of us to heal whatever is present right here. So I want to be complete willingness to that. And then that means any ego aspect of me has to get out of the way because otherwise that will be judging. That part of me will probably want to make right, wrong, good or bad about the situation. And then I disconnect from this beautiful experience that I'm having with something greater, that this is just flowing through me. So a lot of times when I'm facilitating ceremony, I turn off that part of my brain that's like, is this going right? Is this gonna land? Is this? And I just go for it, and I just let it, spirit, absolutely, spirit come through me, and to be the energy that is required for the healing. And then really one of my favorite uh, ways of experiencing the world and looking at the world and all of our practices that has helped me a lot, given me space, is to let the rest take care of itself. Because there again, there's that part of me that feels like it needs to be in control. So it's like I show up in this way, I allow this co-creation. I allow myself to be a vessel for this co-creation and let the rest take care of itself. I don't need to know outcomes, and I don't need to know that things are going to end up a certain way to feel right with it. I just know that I'm in this moment as true and authentic as I can be, and I let the rest take care of itself. Whether that's in a context of a ceremony, of a session with somebody, yoga class, doing my own personal practice. It's like, okay, show up, let the rest take care of itself, which has been very healing in my own. And like, I have to keep saying that so much of this impact that's being created that I'm very grateful is reflected back to me is all a result of me continuing a process of healing and knowing that I'm stepping in greater and greater into a role of supporting others in that journey. So it's the more I heal, the more, and I say heal, like the more things that I recognize that are out of connection or unintegrated in me, as in, oh, I'll feel unright about something. I'll feel like a little off about something, or I'll say something, or I'll manifest behavior that doesn't quite feel right. And it's like, okay, so trace that back. Where's the root, or what's the energy behind that? How can I heal it? Now, I might reach out for some support, therapist, one of my teachers, one of my guides, to see what's possible for moving that. And it's good that when that gets triggered in me,
Mm.
because all of those little experiences, when we get triggered in them, and we have cultivated the presence and the safety of our own self to be able to hold the space for, holding the space for myself to trust in my healing process, only amplifies my capacity to do that with others. Because it's like, wow, we did hape with 100 people. That's the first time I shared that. Now you've had a very strong experience with it, I know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a strong, quick medicine. And my intention with this was, okay, here's a medicine, and I know the possibilities for how this sacred tobacco, when we use it in this way, blowing it up the nose, can center and bring a lot of grounding energy. And I also know that it has the ability to create a purge, one direction or the other. And I know that that's part of the medicine. Like that, I also understand that that's toxins and things the intelligence of that medicine knew to get out of the body in one way or the other. So when we're having 100 people now, the very long relationship I have had with this medicine is that I've had the experience where I've purged. I've had the experience where I felt like gravity was times 10 and I couldn't get up from the ground. And I've also had 99% of experience where, I have the expected experience where it centers me, grounds me, clears me, and I feel really in a space for meditation or present for what's next. So I speak to that experience knowing that there's other things possible. And then when somebody in the, 1 out of 100 or 2 out of 100 have a purge, then I go up to them, and this was the experience that was beautiful and fed back to me as one of the participants threw up, and her big healing was to just be completely okay with throwing up and not worry about somebody taking care of her. And so I explained to her that this is an okay thing, that this can happen. Everything is fine. Give yourself a little bit of time. This has happened to me too. I can share that experience. Cleaned up cleaned up the mess, and it wasn't like, as a facilitator and wanting to hold the space, it would be so easy to freak out about that. Be like, oh shit, what have I done? Yeah, palms getting sweaty. I've made a mistake, right? And rather than coming to that smaller part of me that then is invested in the outcome and limited in that way, I can expand beyond that and say, okay, how can I be of service in this moment? Let's clean this up. Let's support this individual. And then, 2 hours later, after the next event, she comes up after me just light as a feather, like amazing, and just really grateful for the entirety of the experience. So a lot of times it's about getting out of the idea that anything is supposed to be a certain way, a projection,
Hmm.
versus, this whole right, wrong, good and bad thing, and allowing it. And the more I do that within and allow my nature to unfold,
Hmm.
like the unknowableness of it, the more I can allow that experience for others, which is really, really gratifying. But also, it's like that's the work. That's the work I
Yeah.
want.
I had to have a word with myself because I haven't had the best, what I think is the best experience. It felt not for me.
Exactly. It's
It
fine.
felt like I didn't connect with the experience. It felt like I was just sick, and that's just something that's not for me.
Hmm.
And because I had that experience when it was happening, I felt loads of things coming up, like, oh, what's happening? This isn't okay. There's a lot of people here. Like, there's loads of conversation. I really had to, like, and then you get in conversation with other people, and you get caught up in that. And I was like, well, what? I don't really know much about this to have much of an opinion on this. So I really had to, like, okay, I'm not going to say anything here because it's not my place to say. Like, I don't have much experience with this. So that was a bit of a interesting one for me.
I can imagine, because I
Yeah.
know your past experience with it, and I could totally empathize and recognize that. Ooh, what's going to happen here? We got 100 people, and
Yeah, and I think
it's
that's just
yeah,
also that take that and you can apply that to so many things in
yeah,
life
and how fear
that
can.
you have a bad experience, and maybe it's your relationship to that experience that made it quote unquote bad. Like, try and get away from the language of good and bad. It's like unpleasant, uncomfortable,
Yes.
but that makes up your relationship to it. So then you go off in another direction and then see it happening. Whether it's, you had an altercation with someone who dresses a certain way, and then from then on you have like energy towards someone that dresses similar, or it can be that, or like it's in that like relationship to something. So I really had to have a word with myself. What I want to ask you, what do you think? What do you think about the relationship to the thing? So you said that this person had a story around needing to not be cared in that moment by someone. That was really big for her.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is causing that sickness or that purge? Do you think it can be something like a reaction to something, or like what part of it makes it a learning experience and what part of it makes it not for me? Does that make sense? So I feel like I swallowed some tobacco and that was what made me sick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was a reason for that or I need to learn anything. I literally just think that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just something that my body just doesn't connect with, let's say. Although I did have a lovely centering experience before the purge. But it was just that I had a response to it, and it was like, okay, that was there. It's really hard to formulate this question
Mm.
because I'm asking more about like whatever experience we're having, whether it's like the worst thing imaginable, how we view that thing makes it so.
Makes it so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is why I love spending time with you, because every experience in life there will be something to learn. There'll be love. There'll be something to lean into. Okay, how can we learn from this? Like that's the place I want to be in, and I feel like I am for a lot of time. What can I learn from this? Even if
Mm.
my van's in a ditch, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, it doesn't have to be in a ditch right now. Why is it here? And I get into that story of like, God, yeah, but okay, what is that allowing me to see or do differently? And it's like that perspective is huge. But I guess back to the question, it's like what part of, is it just our relationship to life that's the main thing, or that we had an unpleasant experience with something that is actually just that?
When is something medicine and when is it detrimental?
There you go.
In a nutshell, right?
That's the nutshell.
I believe that we can always choose for that experience to be medicine. Because when something happens that is out of the realm of expectation, or unpleasant or something like that, it changes the trajectory of our entire. We can imagine our life being on a timeline. Let's say you never did the first rapé, you did it here. Maybe you had a different experience with it here. Maybe you had the same experience with it here, and then you wouldn't be able to DJ or do whatever else you needed to do, or whatever that is. But it's recognizing that you have the space within you to consider the possibility of the potential of learning from this experience, or seeing the value in it. Whereas, so that's medicine right there. The everything that you did and we do to create that space to be able to respond and question this experience, and to choose meaning from it, and to be open to the different possibilities for meaning in it, that's all part of medicine. And so it's whenever for in the context of this, when I'm presenting it, it's like always choosing that this will be the medicine that it needs, and understanding that I'm putting that faith in the tribes that create the medicine, and the prayer and intention that's gone into it, and my intention as I'm serving it is all part of that, because it's all with this intention for healing, for if a purge needs to happen, it happens. And again, it's the let the rest take care of itself.
Mm.
And it's not a disconnection. It could be easily seen as like a disconnection from responsibility of that experience.
Sure.
What I see it though is it's taking an expanded sense of responsibility, because it's not limiting the event to the all-encompassing experience, and how that can change everything down the line. So when the van gets stuck, for example, and it's like immediately the story starts to form about, again, making the right, wrong, good, and bad of this situation, and then there's the higher awareness, and then okay, what's the good in this, or what now can I do? And there's even that simple experience, right, is so different than victim. Oh man, my van is stuck now. This I shouldn't have drove it over there, and the layers of judgment start to build up, etc. And we recognize that that's creating even a toxic or a lower vibration experience for ourselves. So it's like that. It's in the moment happening that we're creating that, versus the training, the practice, the process, and the layers coming off that give us the space to see a different and bigger picture, and recognizing that it's such a small part of the picture, and then it's in each and every individual's possibility to be choosing what's next. Even the meaning making aspect of it is in the past. So it's now what's present. Now what am I choosing? How can this influence me in a way that is serving my highest purpose, highest good? And again, choosing that. So it's we will I want to make meaning of something, and then even that meaning can be malleable, because I'm always in the choosing of, okay, how to make purpose, how to create purpose, co-create purpose.
Mm.
It reminds me of the metaphor of the very literal and metaphorical proverb that we never put our hand in the same river twice. So the river is always moving, time is always moving, existence is always evolving and moving. So recognizing not only is that all moving, but also the hand is never the same hand that goes into the river twice. So it's already transformed each time, and so it's always transforming. So to get what could be said as like stuck on a moment in time, and the story around it is already, it's like a small dam in that river. So the more we can let it flow, the better. And then the more that also recognizing, in term back to the serving the rapé, is that's a voluntary thing. So I know that there's dimensions of that person and me are choosing this experience, and there's parts of us that we aren't even aware of that's also choosing this experience, even more so. So to honor that unknowableness of our unconscious and something bigger, choosing this experience. So the little part of me that is present and does have a story about this present moment can surrender to that other bigger knowing, which is part of it.
Hmm. Beautiful. I think that's why this event works so well, and it's on such an interesting trajectory
Yes.
because we've got this amazing team that is so what's the word, standoffish, but like we're involved but we're not, we're in but we're not, we're not attached, we're not trying to control, we're almost like saying we're in but we're not. It's like beautiful. I think everyone has that energy, that it's like this is something we're creating together,
Yes.
and it's not about the individual.
Right. It's not about the ego trying to make, and that's why Tony is so. I was reflecting on this. It's like Tony really lets us as facilitators be ourselves.
Yeah.
Huge. I've worked with many people collaborating, and then there's the parts of me that wants to micromanage, the parts of them that want to micromanage, and we're just cutting each other off, our authenticity, and everything like that. And so what resonates with that is we recognize that it's an individual journey. We recognize how important it is to let people have their experience rather than being heavy-handed in it.
Hmm. What comes up for you, and how do you navigate people going through things in your ceremony when you? Because I wanted to ask you about feedback as well. And you notice you said you're channeling, and you're somewhat detached from what's kind of there, to allow you to just continue to flow and be. Are you listening for feedback? Are you gauging the room? Because it's like when I'm playing music, I am looking for those subtleties of like reading the room and when the right moment is to transition to this, or like it's equally like that holding. So are you there? I mean, in responding to certain things and changing things up, or is that just something that you are totally doing but you're not
Mm.
necessarily conscious of?
Oh, I'm there. Like you say, I'm experiencing the energy of the room, and if somebody is sobbing in the corner because now we've gone into inner child work or something like this, and with the accompanying ceremony and cacao to facilitate that, and I can reasonably expect that that's a healthy process. And what I usually do is I'll speak to that process in a way that is very allowing of that process, because what I feel is more important is that that person's process, I seek to mitigate as much as possible other people being in judgment about that process. So I immediately speak for that to that process and validate it, so that others feel like they don't need to be in judgment about it. They can get back into their own process. And for me, that's a dance of keeping the depth of the space, because I recognize that it's really easy to bypass our process because it's easier to involve ourselves in other person's process and then create the story again. It's just this
Mm.
momentous ability in us that, or there's a momentum to it that wants to jump and then create something else out of the reality that's happening right here in me. And the more I can support bringing it attention back, and sometimes that's saying it's validating something that's happening in the room, so that other people can feel like they don't need to be responsible for that. It's a interesting thing that we do is it'll be easier for me to be responsible for that or create a story about that than be in my own story. But I know the work happens when we're in our own experience. And actually, one of our friends there that was in the ceremony was brought back to himself by that experience. So it's important to recognize the energy and what's happening in the room, and for me to validate what's happening in the room, unless something becomes, and it doesn't happen in these experiences because everybody's so open. And I think because, I mean, I get to do the cacao ceremony after a lot of people have been connecting for some time. And when I do cacao ceremonies, most of the time I'm in the context of another training or facilitator training or yoga training where people have had time to gel and feel relatively comfortable with each other.
Mm.
because that's a very different ceremony than a group of people who've come together and they're not
Yeah.
sure about what it is,
Just
and they
for
don't
that.
know each other, right? So
Mm.
those are more superficial in terms of the depth, and I honor that. Like, again, a big part of my journey is facilitating these things was getting my ego out of being attached to certain experiences. Oh, you got to go that deep, or you've got to see it this way, etc. It's just like, that's just so heavy for me to carry. So it's like, share what's there to share, and then trust that that's
Mm.
perfect.
You said something in the ceremony, which I didn't hear at the time, but someone related it back to me, and I'm so glad they did. It was Sharon, and she said that you said it ran through my family
Mm.
until it ran into me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like you to articulate what that means for you and how we can transform.
Yeah, that was recently shared with me, and I felt like that hit a lightning bolt for me.
Yeah, it did with me.
Yeah,
I was
huge.
like, well, if I was ever going to get a tattoo.
Yeah. What really resonates about that is that it puts saying that out loud. If you're listening, say that out loud. It ran in my family until it ran into me. And that there's an awareness that first has to come up, and to recognize patterns,
Mm.
conditioning, trauma. It just recognizing that we are so much manifest unconscious energy of our family line or ancestry. So much patterning. And when I say patterning, it means behavior, thought processes that is so grained into our being, and then from our parents, and everything, and it comes down the line, and we absorb it too as well. When we were at the very young absorbent age, we're pulling that all in, and we're downloading that. And so mom's anxiety becomes our anxiety. Mom's story about men, and whether or not we can trust men becomes my story about how we can trust men. Dad's story about how to treat women becomes my story about how to treat women. My um, dad's story about money becomes my story about money. And then what is the deeper fear, guilt, shame underneath those stories that's driving that? And that's a current. That's an energy. That's a we would say like that. There's an energy to a pattern because something has to keep moving it, and until we have this awareness of it, it'll keep passing through us unconsciously. We'll keep so much of our behavior is already unconscious as it is. So that waking up to being aware of what we're manifesting, not about what we want to manifest, but what am I manifesting? What about now? This moment that I'm, here sitting in a podcast with you, this is downstream of other actions and behaviors and everything. So this is manifest now. So it's like recognizing that, and then so recognizing the family component to that, and how we're passing this along, good, bad, and ugly. Like there's inherited greatness too.
Mm-hmm.
So we get stuck on inherited trauma, and we put all our attention on that. So when we put our attention to it, we amplify it, of course. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes it messy. But when it's when it when I say it ran in my family and then it ran into me, until it ran into me, is saying, okay, I'm taking responsibility for healing this, and
Good
then now
choice.
what?
It gives you the power back.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a choice.
Yeah, and it's
That,
exciting. For me, it's like goosebumps. Like, fuck yeah, I'm ready.
yeah. Mm. Love you, man.
I love you too.
Thank you for sitting with me.
Yeah, thank you for the amazing questions and listening and allowing me to express. Feels really good.
Mm. There's so much we could talk about. I want to point people to your work. I want you to share where people can reach you and how people can learn more about you. You've been on a few podcasts, I hear. So maybe we'll share a few of those in the bio, and people can connect with you and look at some of your courses online. I really wanted to go in on the nature side of things because I think that's a huge part of your platform and your essence, which is everyone, but you choose to speak to it in a way that feels very integrated in that, allowing people to see the nature within
Yes.
and out, you know.
Yes. I'm a it's been my journey and my experience that the more I have done my work in terms of healing and getting connected with the present moment, the more nature comes naturally,
Nature comes naturally.
right? So that means the more inspired I am by nature, the more
Yeah.
driven and desire I have to be in nature, my feet touching the ground, connected with the elements, understanding all of these. So it's a two-way road, right? We can spend time in nature and do that, and then the healing happens, and then also we can do healing work, whatever, however modality that shows up, and then there's a deeper respect and reverence for nature. It's because we are nature. So that's been a huge part of that, and a lot of my brand and what I create is around that, getting to that place of self-empowerment. Jefe Living. My name is Jeff. My friends in college, uni, called me Jefe randomly. I was like, "You're just saying Jeff with a Spanish accent, aren't you?" Right? For a year or two, and then another friend started calling me Jefe, and I learned at some point that was boss, chief. I like chief better than boss. In Spanish, chief, right? So when it came time and it felt like this is the time for me to start creating something, 4 or 5 years ago, what do we call it? It was one of the biggest questions we have.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, don't get you started, right? So it's we want to communicate, convey our essence and what we're about, and that's also evolving as we're evolving. And for me, Jefe Living was born of, okay, that I was called Jefe. And what this is about taking responsibility for our journey. It ran into my family until it ran into me, and however the million of other ways that can look. But it's just like saying, okay, I'm here on this earth. Let me give it my best shot. Let me give it my shot too, like not what anybody else thinks. So it's about being the leader, the chief, the in our own life, and having that. And of course, that's an ongoing journey for me. So I've done a lot of meditation training, a lot of sharing the meditation practice with others, like you're doing the cold, getting people connected with the cold. I've done several iterations of getting people getting an established daily meditation practice. So that's the beginning. And I've got lots of online courses I've recorded from, breath work, meditation, the Ho'oponopono mantra, which I do at um, in the cacao ceremonies. So healing these internal systems that we have and reintegrating them. And so those are a lot of journeys, and I want to share that with people in a way that they feel comfortable, and offer coaching around that. And coaching around getting the language specifically is really powerful in coaching, and the way that we form our stories and how our language and our words and our stories influence greatly where am I putting my attention on this experience, because that's going to shape it. So if we work on that, then there's lots of coaching around that too to be done. So it's the modalities that have resonated with me, and it's my work has been to create something that is cohesive, that takes people on a journey where there's opportunity for transformation. So that's Jefe Living, and then my online platform, which I'm growing and building a lot of material of courses into content into, is the collective, the Jefe Living Collective. And right now that's hosted on a Mighty network, where I do, live intention setting practices and ways that we can, it's my little piece and growing piece of supporting New Earth consciousness, where we are taking on the responsibility to be connected in a human being experience with everything else. It's profound to know that I get to share that journey with others and continue to that, and like that we said this weekend, how beautiful it is, the ripple, because it doesn't just end with that connection. It's like now that person has taken something on, integrated and inspired, and inevitably has to, that their vibration's different. So their what they put out in the world is now different, and it just we're doing it, man. This is just the beginning, and there's this idea. It's not even an idea. New Earth consciousness of human beings connected with themselves and with planet Earth and living and thriving in that way. That is, like you spoke to last night at the closing ceremony, so many people are doing that. So it's only the idea that it isn't here yet. It's completely here. It's only a matter of that mass point, and it's absolutely expanding because we've seen that the current reality that is agreed upon by most people is leading to sickness and illness and disconnection. And then those that have crossed that threshold see that there's thriving connection and a lot more to the human experience than we ever knew there. So that's the impetus, is to keep pushing the envelope in ways, I'm growing in my own capacity to offer it. I'm so inspired by Tony getting 100 people together. I'm not sure I want to. I mean, I definitely want to with an epic and amazing team that there's so much intention and prayer, aka logistics, that go into this. It's a massive undertaking, and it's so beautiful. I'm very grateful for that man, and his unrelenting capacity to take the next step in the direction towards his intention and vision. It's inspiring to me. And your way of showing up too, because he pulls together the people that
he sees things in people, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And he trusts.
Yeah.
He has discipline, but he also has surrender. Yeah, it's fascinating, brother. I think we've got a big road ahead of us.
Oh, and we were just getting started.
Well, we're facing in the right direction.
Yeah.
Hell yes. I truly feel that.
Yeah.
And it's going to play out as it's meant to. I'm so excited.
So excited to share the love.
Yeah.
Because it feels really fucking good.
Thank you, man.
I love you, brother.
Appreciate your words.
Thank you.
I love you. I want to share something.
Share it, please.
When you did the Ho'oponopono, I love you. You do it.
Will I do it? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. When you did that, and we spoke to our mothers and saw our mothers' younger self walking. When you said walking into us, my whole body just had this vibration, and it was almost like this spirit went into me. And whatever it was pretty magical. So thank you for that. It was beautifully guided, and it made a big impact on me. So thank you for that. I love how you hold space, brother. Connect with this man. Right, let's have a hug, brother.
Oh, let's do it.